Okay, so welcome everybody. It's fantastic. We've got lots of people here tonight because this is going to be a really fascinating talk. Linda had the great pleasure and delight of going to the Venice Glass a week, and I think it's somewhere that we would all really love to go to. So we're going to listen with great anticipation and huge jealousy. So over to you, Linda.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just got to find okay, so yes, I went to Venice Glass Week in September, and I was funded by the Welsh Arts Council, so I applied to the International Opportunities Fund because I wanted to research a project that I'm planning to do with other women who work with glass, and so I wanted to meet up with some of the participants in that. And so anyway, I was successful in my application. So the work that I've been making recently is this fragment dresser. And I'll send some links. I'll put some links in the chat after the talk if anyone wants to know more about it. But basically, I want to extend the work I've been doing on the fragment dresser to make work with in collaboration with other women using the cup form. Right, so that's just like an introduction of what my basic idea was in going to Venice. So flew into Venice, and practically as soon as I'd landed, I rushed off to see Helen Mora because she was showing with Daniel on Noel Gallery, and she'd invited me to this drinks evening. So from leaving Bristol at like 5 a.m. in Bristol Airport in one of those interminable snaky things you have to go through for hours, and suddenly I was in Venice, and then I went to this drinks evening, and then we were piled into the gallery owner's private boat and driven around Venice. So this is us going down the Grand Canal as Helen and her cousin videoing like mad. So I've got loads of slides because I wanted to give you really a flavor of what I saw and a general overview of the things that I saw and the things that interested me and the things that I liked and didn't like about Venice Glass Week. So the first thing is Palazzo Loredan was the glass hub. So that's on the mainland of Venice, and that the upstairs was all artists over the age of 35, and the downstairs was all artists under 35. So you can apply to show your work at the Glass Hub. Every year they do the applications. And if you're fortunate enough to be under 35, you can apply. It's free to apply for all artists. But if you're selected, if you're under 35, it's also free to show your work. And if you're selected over 35, it's 500 euros, which is still a pretty good deal considering what you get. So I'll show you some of the work that was on show there. So I started on the top floor with the artists over 35, and I've labeled all the slides so you can see which artists are which. And you can see a general sort of idea of the kind of interior of the palazzo as well. And some artists had considered this when they'd thought about the work they wanted to show, and others clearly hadn't really thought it through that much. So it was a really good overview of really varied. Some things I really liked, some things I really didn't like. As usual with everything, there's things for different people. Now, this is Helen's work. Hopefully the video's working. So Helen makes work which is really of an intimate scale, and she uses projection, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I love it because you're looking at the image as, you know, not really looking at the glass so much as looking at the image that she's making with the glass. And so lots of very different work in the hub. Lots of ideas that you've probably seen people doing elsewhere, or that you've seen these artists before, because some of them are really well-established artists. I mean, this is just absolutely stunning. The Hungarian casting was absolutely mind-blowing. So this is Laszlo and his work upstairs, and his son's work was downstairs. And there's some work that I was less attached to and attracted to, but I wanted to put in a bit of everything. So Michaela Katai, her work, she works with the glassblower on Murano. She lives in Milan. She's a designer. Her work was absolutely stunning. And there you've got the son's work from Hungary. So these, now we've gone downstairs into the younger artist's work. This is quite interesting, because this is an artist that I wasn't aware of their work before. Living in London, born in Turkey, and the work is generated by AI. All the imagery is generated by AI. So they sort of put into ChatGPT, show me an image of a glass blown object with a white interior or something. And then they get an image, and then they work with the glass blower to make that image. So it's quite interesting to see different approaches to work. And all this work you can see on the Venice Glass Hub website, with more details about the artist if you're interested in anything in particular. So again, you can see styles of work that you've probably seen done elsewhere, particularly in the younger artists' work. And then opposite the Glass Hub was another exhibition, which was a collaboration of different glass blowers. And there was some really interesting work in that. This is the Andrea Zilio is the glass blower who works with Michaela Katai, and you can see the incredible work that he makes in his own work. And this is me hanging out with Siobhan and Roisin. So I'd arranged to meet with them. They were both there for the Glass Week. Siobhan was running some engraving workshops on Murano, and Roisin was doing a project with Wave Gallery. And I wanted to meet with them and talk to them about my ideas for my project and see what their involvement might be. I also took some of my flat cups that I've made, so I could give each artist one of these cups, particularly if you're working with artists who are outside, who are in Europe, and we are no longer in Europe. So particularly there, you have to really try and circumvent Brexit by taking stuff in your hand luggage. So I was doing that, and I also gave work to several other artists. And this is Deborah Gurman from Mexico. And I met her, I wasn't expecting to meet her, but then when I was there, Sylvia Levinson messaged me and said that Deborah was coming and would I meet with her. And so we met up, and she is organizing the South American Glass Festival next year. So she sent me the link for that, because the call out is open for that at the moment. So I'm going to put those details in the chat as well after the talk. These are a few of my own pieces that I took. So I wasn't showing work there, unless you count sort of hanging it out your apartment window or showing your work in Venice. I'm sure you could say that, but I went on a course once with Richard Wentworth, and one of the things I really took from that workshop that I did with him was he said, you must ventilate your work. And it's so true, take your work outside, photograph it in different contexts, look at it in different light. And so because I wanted to, use this form of the cups, I wanted to take it and see what it looked like in different places. Let's find my controls. Yeah. So this was another exhibition I went to called House of Glass, and there's a company called Wonder Glass who are making recycled building materials, building materials using recycled glass. And the whole of the palazzo was taken up with their exhibition. And it was quite interesting because what they were actually showing were reasonably small kind of bricks. And this was the setting, the palazzo, and there is a Banksy just casually propped up against the wall there. So, and you've got this incredible Muranese chandelier in the middle of the room. I mean, it's just an incredible environment. All the buildings inside are just so ornate, and yeah, it's really interesting. And one of the best things and most interesting things that I saw in the whole visit really was this, because it was the Architecture Biennale. So every other year is the Art Biennale and the other year is the Architecture one. So this year was the Architecture Biennale. And so this architect, Konstantin Ikonomides, who's born in Greece but lives, I think, in Sweden now, he was showing photographs of an installation that he has done in Greenland. And I really loved that. And it was really great because I'd managed to book on a tour where we could meet with him and he could tell us about the work and answer questions. And that he had these like maquettes of different structures that he's made. And then these were the actual size bricks. And it was really interesting to talk about the engineering and how he'd put all this together. And that was one of the things about Glass Week. If anyone is going to go in future, I thoroughly recommend that you get really organized and you book tickets for things well in advance, because everything will be booked up. And it was really great to have access to these things. So this is Murano. So this is an approach to Murano. So probably a lot of you have been to Venice before. But Murano is the island where almost all the furnaces in Venice are put on Murano, and they were put there historically because of the fire risk. But there is one furnace still on the mainland of Venice, which is the Orsoni furnace. But anyway, this is the approach to Murano. Now, Hannah was not showing in Murano, but I walked past this shop and saw this work and thought, oh, there's Hannah's work. And then Rachel said to me, that's not Hannah's work. And I looked again, and it was just somebody had copied her idea and made this work in imitation of Hannah's work. And I went into the shop and I talked to the man and I said, oh, whose work is this? And he said, oh, it's mine. It's all my own work. And I said, well, that's really interesting because it's really similar to my friend's work in the UK, Hannah Gibson. And he said, oh, I've never heard of her. And then he got really angry and he actually threatened to call the police and said that because I'd taken a photograph, he was going to call the police. I don't know what he thought the police were going to do, but his reaction wasn't the reaction of someone who had not stolen someone else's idea. And there's another piece of work here in another gallery, which reminded me very much of someone else's work who's working in the UK, who you probably know. So plagiarism. And it's certainly very interesting because in Murano, they're selling to tourists. They're selling, they're not necessarily selling artwork. There's amazing art glass, amazing blown work going on there, but there's also piles and piles of things for people to buy, artifacts, souvenirs, and this was one of their sort of souvenirs. But I just put it in as a little illustration of another side to Murano that you don't really necessarily see or notice. So this is Roisin de Butler. She's an Irish artist, and she had a project making medals for climate heroes, and she was using offcuts and waste glass from factories on Murano to make these, and she was bonding them together. So that was really interesting. I also met with Eleanor Rosso, who's a glassblower who worked in Murano for 20 years before she set up her own studio elsewhere. And when I was with her, she was rushing everywhere, and she took me to this amazing place where she buys her color. So just a few photos for color geeks. And she also took me to this furnace, which is no longer operational. And the daughter of the last generation of the glass blowers, she has opened a little gallery there. So there's a few photos from there. And it was really interesting to see the work and the sketches together. And also she had this back room, which when she opened the door, we just walked through into this amazing space, which was just crammed with glass of all eras that had been made in the Tozo factory. And that's Eleanor reminiscing about her youth when she was an apprentice in that factory. And then this is the back room of the factory, which is just empty, would make an amazing exhibition space. But there is a huge problem in Murano with making public exhibition spaces, because you have to decontaminate all spaces chemically, because they've been furnaces before. And it's incredibly costly, and there are no grants available. There's no grants for the industry of glass blowing or for any of the heritage arts in Italy. It's just not supported. It really made me appreciate what we do have here in terms of support for heritage arts. And this is the kind of thing that you can see when you're walking around the back streets, and you can also see how much waste is going into skips here. Probably not going to be taken and recycled. This is Murano Glass Museum. This is my favorite room in the museum, is the Roman glass and the very early glass, which I absolutely love. And they change the displays every so often. It's just amazing. And the exhibition that was on was an exhibition of Nathan Moretti. So again, right through all the ages and all the different designs and fashions. And these are some color swatches from that exhibition, which of course was fascinating. And I love the fact that there were the designs and the artwork, and you could see the drawings and you could see the work, and you could see, I mean, it's amazing. 1920, this was 1920 on Murano. The kind of influence of the, really cutting edge designs of the period were coming out of these factories. And some quirky things that I'd never seen before that I just had no idea about, where they'd made this kind of like animals from block sheets that they'd made. It's kind of quirky things. Huh. And just the most beautiful, beautiful glass. So this is all in the Glass Museum in the Nathan Moretti exhibition, but just so fine and so interesting. And here's Linda Wilson. I think she's here in the talk tonight, and she had entered these beads into a bead exhibition, which was on there, which was absolutely lovely. So it was nice to see that little exhibition of beads. And this is a bead card with different types of beads, Murano beads. They have huge archive of material. And this is what you see if you go into the church on Murano. So it's really important to me to go and see the glass in the context, because, obviously I also work with architectural glass. So it's always good to see it out of a gallery and in a context. These are some engraved pieces by Amy West. So I met up with Amy. We'd been meaning to meet together for a few years, and we actually made it this time. And this is the mobile furnace. So part of the Glass Week, they put a furnace on a barge and they take it into the center of Venice on the Grand Canal and blow glass on the barge. And it's kind of like a publicity stunt for Venice Glass Week. And this building, quite unprepossessing, it's the Orsoni Smalti factory making mosaic pieces. And Catherine Schilling had asked me if I would collect a colour chart for her from the factory. So I found my way over there and managed to get inside, which was absolutely amazing. I don't know, can you hear the sound on it or not? No, you can't hear the sound. Okay. So it's the only place where they're making smalti by hand now in Venice. So they make all the glass, they make glass slabs and they cut it all. And this is what their bookshelves look like. So because I was collecting this for Catherine, actually hadn't thought it through totally, because hadn't really thought about how heavy a colour chart of glass slab was going to be. But anyway, it was great because I managed to get them to show me around the factory. You can have a tour of the factory, but you have to book loads in advance and they only do it once a month. So if you're going to Venice, try and tie in with the day that they do the tour, because I really want to go and see the actual tour next time I go. I didn't mean to show you that twice. Okay, so and this is bits and pieces from around the factory, collet of glass that's used for making mosaics, and then the most amazing crucibles from the mosaic making. Because a lot of the mosaic, I mean, it's opaque, so it's quite different to a lot of glass that I'm using in architectural work. And then these blue pieces here, these are the gold pieces. So the gold mosaic is made with glass, and they usually are using blue glass to emphasize the quality of the gold. So it's put onto the gold and it's flattened, as you can see. These like pancakes, and that's how they sell. Well, you could buy it like that, but what they do, of course, is they cut it all down, and it's obviously very expensive. But that was really interesting to see how it's made, the actual slab of it. And that's Catherine's colour chart, which I still have. No, I'm bringing it to London on the 9th, or on the 8th. So I'll be handing it over then, Catherine. But I had a good look at it. It was amazing to see it's the only way to choose colour is to have the actual thing. It's no good looking at a printed chart, really. And you can see the quality of the material. And the other thing that I did was we went to Battiloro, which is a place where they beat gold. So it starts off, I haven't got a slide, actually. I should have put a slide in. It starts off with a gold ingot that's about 1 centimetre square, and then it's beaten out to 25 sheets of foil, depending on how thick the leaf or the foil is going to be. So it's all beaten by hand, and here is a video of how it's done. So it's packed up in this leather pouch and then beaten by hand, literally like that. And this is the last man who is able to do this, because no youngsters actually want to do this as a job, which is actually quite understandable. But also it's very sad because the factory's going to have to close. They can't make it anymore. It's not work that young people want to do anymore, and no one in their family, or they can't even find someone from outside of their family who wants to take that on. So it's being lost. And again, there's no support for it as a heritage craft. I was invited to the opening of an exhibition at Scala Contarini dei Bovolo, and this is an amazing tall building in Venice with the stairs that go all the way up here. And there was a music, glass and sound performance by a young Polish artist down here. And then I went up the stairs and just absolutely loved the view. And one of the things that there were two artists showing. Antonio Rossi makes contemporary Morini. So you can see a detail here of his kind of slab of meat Morini, and there's some snails here. So that was quite interesting. And the other artist showing was Michela Cattai, who I showed you earlier, her Botanica Adriatica in the Palazzo Loredan. And she had these pieces here, which I absolutely love with this painting. I love to see glass and painting together. You know, the way things are curated, it's always really interesting. On that topic, this is the Accademia in Venice, which I love to visit. I love going and looking at the paintings and looking at all the details, and then looking at the glass. So the exhibition, the glass exhibition that was on for Venice Glass Week in the Accademia was Laura di Santillana. So she sadly has died quite young, but she made some really incredible work. And I think her father ran Venini. He was Paolo Venini or something like that. So she had incredible access to facilities in Murano, but she really has totally made her own mark. And the way they curated the exhibition, the way they put the glass and the paintings together was just absolutely fabulous. I could have stayed there for days looking at the light through the glass, how it related. You know, I could see so much of how her work was inspired by the colors in these paintings and by Venetian art. And here's a bit of Venice, because I haven't actually shown you any landscape. And I thought it's so amazing going there, just the place, not let alone going inside galleries and museums, but just going to the place. It just really does literally float my boat. So yeah. And then I booked to go on a workshop in the public library on Lido, which was making bead flowers. And I thought, why not? So Rachel and I went together on this, and it was really good fun, actually. It's really, I have to say, a massive advantage to speak Italian. So it was very useful to be able to communicate with people. This is what we made, which when I photographed it with a light, I thought it looks actually quite professional. But to be completely honest, that is our first little efforts at bead art. But it was really great because I hadn't really thought about beads until this time in Venice. And Amy West, who I saw in Murano, she makes bead jewelry, and actually wearing a necklace she gave me, which is really lovely. And it's made me think about other possibilities with glass, you know, other ways of using the material, which of course I'm always interested in. And there's two more pictures of the general sort of vibe in Venice. So with Acqua Alta, with climate change, of course, Venice is doomed. And every so often you get flooded footpaths and quaysides. And of course, I love that. I love it because I love reflection and how it breaks up the landscape. And then another side of Venice is that you get these really weird little tableaus of people I thought they just got married, but then I realized that they were way too professional. They were moving way too professionally to be people who just got married. They were doing an advert shoot, and you're surrounded by massive hoardings on the buildings of perfume, particularly perfume adverts and banking adverts and what have you, but selling some sort of romance of Venice. So it was quite fascinating to watch these people and what they were up to. There was an exhibition of Czech glass, which I went to on Giudecca. And this is the work out of everything I saw there that really struck me. And I've never seen this work before, though it isn't exactly recent. I think it was done in the maybe 20 years or 15 years ago. But these pieces are cast glass pieces, and they're suspended in tanks of water. And then there's a stonework at the bottom. It was just absolutely stunning. And And again, something that interests me is how you show work in it with integral lighting, because that's something I'm working on all the time. So it was really interesting to see how these things have been resolved. And also on Giudecca, there was an exhibition by Shape Arts, which is a British disability arts organization, and they were showing large-scale drawings and sculptures. And that was really great as well. It was great to see things on this scale in these buildings. And Giudecca is the traditionally, well, it's the Jewish quarter, but it's where the boats were built. So there are these incredible spaces and big high-roofed workshops. And this was like having too much dinner. Was going to the Stanza di Vetro and the current exhibition, which was Bohemian Glass. Lots and lots of shiny things. And even shinier things. So put that in if Anthony's watching. It's just amazing, you know, how they've made glass as lenses, and the optical illusions of, is that a space, is it protruding, is it a cavity? It's all mind-blowing. You could look at it for weeks. And another thing I'd done was book tickets for the Cini archive, which is the archive of glasswork on San Giorgio. And I booked the tickets because I saw a picture of this wall of fragments, and as you might know, fragments are really my thing, and I really wanted to see that. And the wall of fragments was these are all samples that have been made by glass blowers for designers and artists, which is, you know, something that I'm obviously interested in. And we had a tour, and you could see all the accounts for different companies. You could see the drawings. You could see the photographs of the work. And there was a residency by an Argentinian artist called Marcela Ternadas, whose work was called Manifesto of Sand. So she's a conceptual artist. And that was her work, was all about sand, investigations of sand, really, as the basis of glass making. And you get these like really scruffy bits of paper that I'm sure we've all got kicking around in our studios, with sellotaped on bits of glass down the side for ideas of how things could be made or what you might put together on them. And then there was this whole bank of, this was the Salviati archive. So there's about, I think there's 2 people who work in this archive, and there were 2 women who were interns, and their job is to scan all the documents that they're given. And downstairs in the basement, they've got a scanner, which is the world's fastest, most efficient scanner. It's circular, and it was donated by the space, what's it called, the place in Lausanne, where they do all the space exploration. And it was made there for this archive, because they just don't have the time to scan everything. So it has to be really fast and really high quality. But the work they're doing is just amazing. And then this is just a nice picture from Carezzonico, which is where I went after that. So I was only there a week. So all this was done in a week. So it's really a bit of a whistle-stop tour that I'm giving you here. And the sort of thing that catches my eye in Venice, the patterns on the water, and how that relates to this work here and the cane work. With this, the exhibition by Lino Tagliapietra at Carezzonico, looking at the cane work, and again looking at how it's put in the buildings, how it's influenced by the light of Venice, the colors of Venice, the place, the water, the view. That's the view out the window, and then that's Lino's work. So it's kind of it was a retrospective, really, of his work. And these were some pieces. I put these in because these were some pieces that he made in the Bullseye factory. So he's, taken on working in different ways and now does quite a lot of things in America. Like a lot of the glass workers from Murano are going to America, hiring studios and teaching there because it's so difficult now on Murano to make a living. And that was going home.
Mhm.
And then since I got back, I've been working more on ideas coming out of my kind of domestic objects research. And I've applied for a grant to do the collaboration with Sylvia and Alison Lowry, and with 7 other women artists. And I'm waiting to hear. I should hear this week. I was hoping that I would hear something before tonight, but I haven't yet. So we'll see. But these are some things that I've been sort of doing in the meantime and furthering my ideas and experimenting in the studio with materials and different materials, doing some printmaking as well, and getting up to speed with a bit of screen printing, trying things out on my dresser setup. And that's it. And so, yeah, thanks to the Arts Council for supporting me and going. I'm going to stop sharing now.
That was fascinating.
Great, Linda.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow.
Well, I'm glad I managed to get through 85 slides in 45 minutes.
It doesn't seem that long, honestly. That was great.
Good, because when I told my husband that I had 85 slides, he said that's absolutely ridiculous. You have to cut half of them out, and I'm like, oh well, I'll just talk quick.
Yeah, no, don't cut any out. It was great.
Oh, incredible! Wow. So,
Thank you, Hannah.
What was your totally favourite thing?
Totally favorite thing. I'm still processing that, really. I loved going to Orsoni. I loved that, and I definitely would go back there.
You have to take me.
Oh yes, Catherine, you have to carry your own glass next time, love.
But without me, you'd never have got the chance.
Exactly. No, it was really great. I'd been trying to get, they had some tours for the architects thing. And so I tried bullshitting my way into this. I told them that, I work with architecture. But they weren't washing it and they were fully booked, so I couldn't get a tour. But the fact that I had gone there for Catherine and I'd spent money on her behalf, then they had to sort of like take pity and at least let me have a look at what was going on there. So yeah, that was really good.
So was this your first visit to Venice?
No, I've been quite a few times over the years. Yeah, I've got to know it quite well, and yeah, I love it. Wow. It is a bit weird when you go there because the tourism is just the thing. It's just massive, and you're aware that you're contributing to that as well by being there. So, and no, Venetians don't live in Venice anymore. They live on the mainland. It's so expensive. I mean, if you think it's bad where we live for Airbnb and the collapse of community in Venice, it's just horrific. It's kind of better. It is a bit better now that the big cruise ships are not permitted to go to Lido, which they used to do, and those massive cruise ships. Even when the gas conference was on, I think we saw the cruise ships, didn't we? They're just like they're as big as the buildings, huge. But anyway, so yeah, and it's kind of an unreal place from that point of view. But I do think it does help speaking Italian, because you can talk to people in the street, you can find out stuff. And when I went with Karen, we inveigled our way into a very closed environment, didn't we? So we always have adventures, but yeah.
And was it all free, or did you have to pay to go into anywhere?
There were things you could pay for, of course, because Venice Glass Week is like a promotion for glass. It's like a on the shoulders of the season thing. Nothing's free in Venice, I have to say. But I didn't go to, I don't think I went, well, apart from when you pay to go into museums, obviously, and you pay for your transport. But I didn't go on any paid tours or anything like that. I mean, I've been to see people blowing glass quite a lot of times, and although it is always lovely and interesting, it wasn't my priority in this visit. So
it's been really interesting hearing about it, Linda. Thank you for telling us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, because it's something that I'd never be able to do, and it was really interesting and beautiful as well. You take good photos.
Who's that? Who's talking?
It's Linda.
Linda.
Oh, hi. Why wouldn't you be able to do it?
Well, I went to Venice quite a long time back, and I suppose it's not likely that I'm going to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
No.
Well, next year is the Art Biennale, so that's always really interesting as well.
Yeah. Actually, we were lucky that when we did go, there was an Art Biennale on, and that was really amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, but just walking around Venice, just the buildings, just being in that incredible, it's like a theater or going back in time, and that because obviously there's no cars, so you go everywhere on a boat, and there's a lot of walking, but that's all fine. That's all good with me. I enjoy it. Yes, Catherine.
At the beginning you talked about the first place where if you're over 35 you have to pay 500.
Yeah.
But you seem to think it was quite good value.
Well,
500, yeah.
500 euro, but what you get for that, you get a lot of exposure. So, and you get a space in that exhibition space, which obviously you have to manage that quite closely as to how you show your work in there. But I guess that you're there they do an opening thing, they do an opening event and a closing event, and they do a press event. So it gets lots of publicity and lots of press coverage. So if that's what you're looking for in your work and you want exposure, I mean, 500 euros, how much is that? It's pretty much £500 now, isn't it?
But then there's all the shipping.
Yeah.
Trying to get your work into Europe. And
yeah. Well, this is a massive thing, of course, now. It's awful.
Getting it back without paying tax to our people, having,
I know.
So frustrating. Yeah, no, because sometimes, when people talk about, you get exposure, you think, no, I want exposure, I want somebody to buy something.
Yeah, well, I guess that, you'd have to it would be worth talking to people that have exhibited there as to what they got out of it. I think the people who'd bothered to show up and were there, that probably made a difference. Like Michaela Katai, she was there all the time. I don't think hardly any of the younger artists who hadn't paid, but I don't think I didn't meet any of them. So that was kind of a shame, because that would have been a good opportunity for them.
Did you feel there were many collectors there looking, or is it mainly artists?
Not mainly artists, I think. Mostly not artists, mostly collectors or people, just general people with an interest. But in terms of the commercial viability of it, you would have to talk to someone who'd been there. And I just get massively excited by going in those buildings. So I think if you and I'm really interested in making modular work, making work that's small enough to put in my suitcase and take places and put together, rather than big pieces. But you're quite right, Catherine. If you're making monumental work or work that you have to ship, and now it's such a pain. I mean, so many people had to pull out of Bulgaria and what have you because they just couldn't afford the shipping. Thanks to Brexit.
Is Venice Glass Week just 1 week of glass?
It is 1 week. If you look at the website, you'll see what's done. I mean, they try and extend it to a certain extent, so there'll be other events before and after it, but the focus is on that 1 week. Yeah,
it's just I was in Venice 2 weeks later, and I feel as though I've missed so much. But I did go to San Giorgio and across the Grand Canal, a phenomenally good exhibition of contemporary Bohemian glass. I was amazed by. It was just wonderful. But for those who've never been to Venice, I recommend you must stay in Venice overnight, because it's very interesting to see things first thing in the morning and last thing at night. But it's mega expensive. A couple of years ago, bed and breakfast was 120 euros a room for bed and breakfast. So I can understand young people would not be staying in Venice overnight because it's just so expensive. But
but it's much cheaper if you get an apartment.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and share, indeed.
And that's what I do when I go there. So I would never think of staying in a hotel or bed and breakfast, because it would just be completely too expensive and you don't get very good space. But there are quite a lot of reasonable apartments for 60 or 70 pound a night. And if you share, it's And
actually, if you go out of season, there is a hotel which I think is right next to the museum on Murano, and they're really reasonable.
Are they? That's the Hyatt, isn't it?
It's not a big museum. I don't know I don't know what the name of it is, but it's on Murano.
Yeah, it's the Hyatt.
Right. Well, very reasonable.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Just what we're talking, I've been to Venice 3 or 4 times, but I've never been to Murano till this year, because it's probably my last visit to Venice. But I went down the main drag in Murano, as one does, and then having walked around part of the island, I came to a glass factory outlet. And the bowls there were maybe 100, 150 euros, but around the main drag, they're more than double the price. Just different factory outlet versus the main drag, shall we say. Quite a difference. But you will see an amazing range, types of glass, cast, etc., fused. And I did also see these Hannah ones as well. And I also went into the shop and spoke to the chap who was.
Did you?
His idea during COVID lockdown, I came up with this idea, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, well, wonder on. But yeah, that was my first thought when I saw these. It's a similar looking one, shall we say? But
he didn't threaten to arrest you then?
There were 2 of us.
There were 2 of us as well, but he didn't stop him. He really didn't like it at all.
He was quite a young chap, yes, and quite full of himself, shall we say.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Hannah. Must be so frustrated.
Worse things happen at sea.
Oh, you're there. Hello.
I'm just, to be honest, I'm in my pajamas. So I'm not going to confess that at all.
They were nowhere near as refined as yours, Hannah. they look very crude.
Well, we had an exchange at the time, didn't we, Hannah? Because I had to tell her that I'd seen this, but on the other hand, it really isn't worth wasting your energy on these people, because as I said to Hannah, you just can feel sorry for them that they don't have any ideas of their own. I just can't imagine what it would be like to not have ideas and just to, you know, therefore you're just taking other people's ideas. I mean, that would be so boring.
Absolutely. I think it's
Italian,
just,
it's not
so
the first Italian.
no, I was just going to say, you know, on through Instagram, they've been following me on social media since 2018. So,
Yeah,
you know, you just think, it does, worse things happen though, don't they? Life's too
Yeah.
short.
exactly. What were you going to say, Catherine?
No, he's not the first Italian, because there was that other Italian who does it, makes the same idea, but in resin.
Yeah. They're
I know.
growing in numbers.
Yeah. But this is the second one.
It shows you how successful you are, Hannah, if people are copying you.
That's a good point. I need to, that's a very good point.
Oh.
I don't know if I told you ever, but once when I was doing an image search about the work that Rachel and I have done, I discovered someone selling t-shirts and mugs with a piece of work that we'd made on them as their own work online. And I said I went to the website and I wrote to them and I sent them photographs of me painting this piece of work and said that, you know, and they had to take it down straight away. But yeah, it's just everywhere now. It's just plagiarism.
It's a 4-letter word.
Well, John Cage, the composer, he said, and when he was asked if it bothered him that people made work like his, he said, well, anyone can make work like mine, but no one can make work like I'm going to be making. So I think that's a good attitude to have. And we're always, you know, we're always moving forward in our work. So if someone copies something you did last week, so what?
It's a very old
Your
thing.
project.
Hello? Is it Michelangelo used to make fake Greek statues, didn't he? I think when he was hard up and young.
There you go. Linda, I was going to say, what when you hear about if you get the funding, so is it a project that you're working towards an exhibition, or what's it going to be?
Okay, so hang on, I just want to put something. I promised to put these things in the chat, so I'm going to put these links in the chat for anyone who's interested. If I can find the chat, it seems to have disappeared. Oh, there it is. I've got it. I just put that in the chat.
Saw something.
So it's a project that I want to do with Sylvia Levinson and Alison Lowry, and it's also with Olga Turecka, who's a Ukrainian artist, and then involving also, I think there's 7 other women at the moment in this particular funding bid, and it's to make work which would be shown in our homes, so make more intimate work that was shown in people's homes, and it's about the home as a place of safety and of fear. So looking at those ideas and making small work again, you know, small work that can be put in one suitcase and transported or popped in the post. So I've done quite a lot of collaborative things with artists, and it's one of the things that I love about working in glass is working with other people. And my last collaborative work was not glass, but it was a postcard thing that I did with an artist in Hong Kong, and we had 40 artists involved, and the whole exhibition fits inside a shoebox. So it's a proposal that, well, we just have to wait and see. Everything is massively competitive. So whether we get the funding to do it or not, but
well,
yeah.
Good luck with it.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, that was great. I think you've inspired all of us to go to the next Venice Glass Week.
I would like to encourage people as well to apply for grants for things, because, you know, it's not, it's not so easy to apply for grants, but if you don't apply, you certainly won't get them. That's for sure. And
did you write an article about your work, that particular the teacups?
yes, there's an article which is have you seen the Irish Glass Journal?
Well, I've seen an article about your work somewhere because I remember it particularly. The teacups and the dresser.
I've written an article for the Irish Glass Journal, which I haven't actually seen it published yet, but that I don't know if I wrote for something else as well, but it's on my website. There's a link.
Oh, okay, maybe
there's a link in the chat.
Yeah. It was nice. I looked, because I really remember it.
Thank you. Any other questions or?
Yeah, any other questions?
Everybody's very quiet tonight.
They're so all gobsmacked trying to work out how they can afford to go to Venice.
And ship work out there. It's amazing, isn't it, how big some of the pieces are as well. I mean, Lino's pieces, I mean, they're absolutely beautiful, aren't they? And as you say, in that situation with the paintings and all the grandeur of all the palaces.
It's amazing, yeah. I mean, there's one thing for me to say, make small things that you can put in your purse, but yes.
Yeah.
It is amazing to see them in that context.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really great talk. It was just amazing to see such a huge range of stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much for doing that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, part of the thing is, is to share. That's part of what I'm interested in doing, is sharing things, sharing experiences. So, and thanks to everyone who's commented in the chat. I'm sort of reading those comments now. So
you must have been power walking everywhere to have got round to so many.
I tell you what, I had to write a report for my grant when I got back, and I kept a diary of everything I'd done, and kept it all. And I wrote this thing. I was like, they're not going to believe I only went for a week, because there's just so many things. Every day there was 3 or 4 things, and
it is extraordinary, the absolute variety of work that you showed. Well, you showed us, and that was obviously there, and that was just part of it. I mean, it just.
There were loads more things that I could have seen. I didn't go around the factories this time. And loads more things. But my sort of orientation was towards, apart from like looking at what was going on and what work was there, was about meeting these other women, and there's not that many women working in Murano now or ever, so that's interesting in itself.
Caroline's asking if you have spent much time in Prague looking at glass.
I have never been to Prague. That would be amazing.
CGS outing.
We need an Arts Council grant.
We do.
So is Caroline, do you live in Prague? Caroline? I don't know if she's there.
Hello. Yes, I am here. Yes, I've been to Prague twice. I used to go and play the violin. And on the second trip, I made more effort to sort of track down some glass. And there's some, well, it is huge, big cast pieces and some very interesting art galleries as well. There's sort of strange. At the time I last went, I went to an art gallery where they had these very communistic looking ladies in uniforms, and if you got more than very close to the artwork, they would come and look very threatening. But that was paintings. But yes, I think I would like to go again to Prague because I know obviously Czech glass is very famous and they do a lot of bigger work. And also I don't really know what's there, to be honest, but I've got this massive book called Czech Glass, which I can hardly lift. It's got a longer title than that, but it's about the sort of wartime and the famous glass painters, you know, millions of very famous glass artists from the Czech Republic. So it's somewhere else. Right, I've not been to Venice, but you know, it's very tempting to go in the off season and just have a look. But yeah, I'm not very good at walking long distances, so I might not manage to do that these days. But yeah, it was a wonderful talk. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. It was fascinating to see what goes on, you know, because it's a whole different world and different attitude in Italy, having such a long history and tradition and that sort of thing. You know, in Italy, it's I think the Czech must have a very different tradition, but they've obviously succeeded in making a huge fantastic amount of producing a lot of good designers. You know, I suppose, yes, it's like you could go to Scandinavia as well and go all the way around and see everything that's happened. But yeah, I'm sure Italy is the most interesting, probably. Anyway, I won't ramble on.
Well, I think, you know, I love to travel. I live in a village in the middle of a field. Basically, we have one bus a week here, and I do need to get out of the village every so often, but not too often, because you can also get massively distracted looking at all the beautiful shiny things.
Yeah.
So it has to be balanced.
Where did you learn Italian then, Linda?
Oh, years ago I learned Italian, and I love using it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic to be able to speak the language.
Oh.
Well, thanks everyone for listening.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Well done. That's wonderful.
See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon, Catherine. Looking forward to it.
Forget it.